I did not track my husband to the hotel because I was jealous. I tracked him because I suspected that tonight, on my 30th birthday, he was signing a document that would leave me with nothing. When the blue dot on my map stopped, I realized he had not forgotten the date. He was using it as a weapon. I walked into that elevator expecting a mistress, but what I found was a calculated execution of my life. My name is Lauren Whitaker, and today I turned 30 years old inside a house that felt less like a home and more like a waiting room. The silence in the kitchen was heavy, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the tapping of my husband's shoes against the hardwood floor. I sat at the island, watching Gavin Price adjust his tie in the reflection of the microwave. He looked handsome, sharp, and completely indifferent to the date on the calendar. "I have to run," Gavin said, checking his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. "Just a quick meeting with the guys. You know how it is. We need to go over the quarterly projections for the fantasy league." He offered a tight, apologetic smile that didn't reach his eyes. I looked down at the small vanilla cupcake I had bought for myself earlier that afternoon. A single unlit candle sat in the center of the frosting. I had put on a slip dress that I used to love, the silk cool against my skin, hoping it might spark a memory or a compliment. Instead, Gavin grabbed his camel wool coat, the expensive one he saved for client dinners and anniversaries, and shrugged it on. "Don't wait up," he called out, the front door clicking shut behind him. The lock engaged with a finality that made my stomach turn. I was alone. I reached for the lighter and flicked it on, watching the small flame dance before touching it to the wick. I blew it out immediately. The smoke curled up, smelling of burnt sugar and disappointment. Just then, the iPad Gavin had left on the counter chimed. The screen lit up with a banner notification. It was a message from a group chat simply titled The Inner Circle. "Bro, see you at the Marrow Hotel." A wine glass emoji followed the text. The Marrow Hotel. It was the most exclusive venue in the city, a place of velvet ropes, dim lighting, and $400 cocktails. It was not a place for fantasy football drafts. I unlocked my phone and opened the location sharing app. Gavin had turned it on years ago, claiming it was for safety, and he had likely forgotten it was still active. I watched the small blue dot representing his phone move rapidly down the highway, bypassing the exit for the sports bar he usually frequented. The dot weaved through the downtown traffic and came to a stop right at the intersection of 5th and Grand. The Marrow. My heart began to hammer against my ribs, but not because I thought he was throwing me a surprise party. That kind of hope belonged to a younger, more naive Lauren. This feeling was darker. It was the intuition of a woman who had caught her husband in small lies before and was now staring at a big one. My phone rang, shattering the quiet. The caller ID read, Northline Strategy Group. "My company," I answered, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hand. "This is Lauren, Ms. Whitaker. This is automated security." A flat, robotic voice said, "We detected a request for your digital signature token from an unrecognized device. Did you authorize this access?" I frowned. "No. I am at home." "Understood. Please check your primary email for a security alert and pending documents." I pulled my laptop open. There, at the top of my inbox, was an email marked high priority. The subject line was vague, almost boring enough to ignore Amendment Asset Access Authorization. The timestamp required for execution was tonight, 11:59. I opened the attachment. It was a PDF, dense with legal jargon, but my name was plastered all over the header. Someone was trying to authorize a transfer of administrative rights for my work accounts, and they were doing it right now, while Gavin was at the Marrow. The pieces clicked together with a sickening snap. This was not just an affair. This was a robbery. I stood up. I grabbed my trench coat and shoved the half-burnt birthday candle into my pocket. It felt hard and waxy against my fingers, a bitter souvenir of the night. I walked out to my car, the cool evening air doing nothing to calm the heat rising in my neck. As I drove toward the city, watching the lights blur past, I made a promise to the woman reflected in the rearview mirror. I was not going to the hotel to make a scene. I was not going to cry or beg. I'm coming for you. Gavin, I whispered to the empty car. And I am going to see everything. I pulled up to the valet stand at the Marrow Hotel. I took a deep breath, smoothed my coat, and prepared to walk into the building. Tonight, I would not be the wife waiting at home. I would be the witness to my own betrayal. The lobby of the Marrow Hotel smelled of crushed velvet, expensive amber perfume, and the kind of money that never raises its voice. The floors were polished marble, reflecting the golden glow of the chandeliers overhead. I stepped inside and pulled my coat tighter around my waist, trying to shrink inside the fabric. To the people laughing and drinking around me, I was just another woman waiting for a cab or a date. But inside, I felt like a ghost haunting the scene of my own murder. I approached the reception desk, forcing my shoulders back. The woman behind the counter had perfect eyeliner and a gaze that assessed the cost of my handbag in a split second. "Good evening," I said, keeping my voice light. I believe my husband might have made a dinner reservation for us. It is my birthday. Under the name Price, or maybe Whitaker. The receptionist tapped a long fingernail against her screen. Her expression bored. She scrolled down, then up, before looking at me with flat eyes. "There is no reservation under those names." "Ma'am," she said, "perhaps you have the wrong venue." "Right," I whispered, turning away before she could see the humiliation burn my cheeks. I must be confused. I was not confused. I walked toward the bar area, staying in the shadows cast by the large decorative palms. The noise level rose here, a mix of jazz and low baritone laughter. I scanned the room, my heart beating against my ribs like a trapped bird. I found him in the far corner. Gavin was not watching a game. He was sitting in a circular leather booth surrounded by 3 men in dark, tailored suits, men who looked like they traded companies for sport. And sitting right next to him, so close that her thigh pressed against his, was a woman with sharp blonde hair and a backless dress. I recognized her instantly from LinkedIn profiles and industry rumors. Sloane Mercer. She was a fixer, the kind of person you hired when you wanted problems to disappear legally. I was the problem. I slipped my phone out of my pocket and hit the record button, holding it casually at my side. I did not need a picture of them kissing. I needed to hear what they were plotting. Gavin raised his whiskey glass, his face flushed with the kind of adrenaline I used to mistake for passion. The men around him raised theirs in unison. "To the reset," Gavin said, his voice carrying just enough for my microphone to catch it. "After tonight, everything's clean." I felt a chill run down my spine. Clean. He was not talking about laundry. He was talking about erasing a history. He was talking about erasing me. Sloane set her glass down and reached into her oversized clutch. She pulled out a thin, cream-colored envelope. She did not hand it over immediately. She slid it across the mahogany table. Gavin did not look at the envelope. He looked up at the ceiling corners, scanning the room for security cameras with a paranoia I had never seen in him before. Once he was satisfied, he snatched the envelope and shoved it into the inner pocket of his jacket. "Let's get this done," Sloane said, standing up. The group moved toward the elevators. I waited behind a pillar, counting to 10 to let them get ahead. When the elevator doors slid shut on their laughing faces, I watched the digital numbers climb. They stopped on the 4th floor, the conference level. I took the next car up. When the doors opened, the 4th floor was silent, a stark contrast to the lively lobby below. The hallway was lined with closed doors, the carpet thick enough to swallow the sound of my boots. I crept forward, staying close to the wall. I heard Gavin's voice coming from the end of the hall. "Is he ready?" Gavin asked. "He has been waiting for 20 minutes. Sloane replied, "Stop sweating." "You are making me nervous." I peeked around the corner. They were entering a room marked Executive Suite B. The door did not close all the way. It rested against the jamb, leaving a sliver of light spilling into the hallway. I moved closer, holding my breath until my lungs burned. Through the crack, I saw a long table. Gavin was taking off his jacket. Sitting opposite him was an older man with gray hair and a heavy, tired face. He was not a waiter. He was not a friend. He had a black bag open on the table, and he was setting up a tablet and a physical stamp. "I am the notary for the evening," the older man said, his voice dry. "I need to see identification before we proceed with the signature verification." I stepped back into the shadows, my hand covering my mouth to stifle a gasp. This was not a birthday surprise. It was not even a sordid hotel room affair. It was a business transaction. My husband had dragged me into his life, used my credit, built his image on my foundation, and now, on the night I turned 30, he was in a rented room with a notary and a fixer, preparing to sign my life away. I stood in the shadowed alcove of the hallway, the sliver of light from the conference room cutting across the carpet like a boundary line I was terrified to cross. My breath hitched in my throat, not from fear, but from the sudden, violent clarity of memory. 5 years ago, Gavin had walked into my life wearing a suit that did not fit him and carrying a portfolio full of ideas that were not his. He had called himself ambitious. I had fallen for the hunger in his eyes, mistaking it for drive. I realized now, standing in the dark hotel corridor, that he had never been ambitious. He had just been starving, and I had been the meal. I remembered the day I added his name to the deed of our first house and the joint investment accounts. We were sitting at the kitchen island, drinking cheap wine. It just makes sense, doesn't it? Gavin had said, sliding the pen across the granite. "We are a team. Lauren, your wins are my wins. Why keep things separate if we are building an empire I had signed? I had believed in the we. I had been the architect, the builder, and the financier, while Gavin had simply been the man standing next to the ribbon-cutting ceremony holding the scissors. I looked down at my phone. The screen was dim, but the notification from the digital signature app was pulsing like a warning beacon. Authorization request pending. The request had been initiated 3 minutes ago, the exact moment Gavin had sat down with the notary. The timestamp was not a coincidence. It was a fingerprint. I opened my email settings on my phone, my thumb hovering over the administrative tab. I had a sudden, sinking feeling that the breach went deeper than just tonight. I scrolled to the forwarding rules. There it was. An auto-forward command set up 6 months ago. Every email labeled finance, contract, or bank was being silently sent to an external address, G. Price, private proton mail, com. He had been reading my life for half a year. He knew about the bonuses. He knew about the client retainers. He knew everything. I wanted to kick the door open. I wanted to scream until the crystal chandeliers in the lobby shook, but I froze that impulse. Screaming would make me the hysterical wife. Screaming would give him the narrative he wanted, that I was unstable, emotional, crazy. I needed to be a ghost. I opened our text thread. My fingers trembled, but I forced them to type. "Happy night with friends. I'm proud of you. Don't stay out too late. Birthday girl is waiting." I hit send. It felt like swallowing glass, but it was necessary. I needed him to look at his phone, see the message, and think. She has no idea. She is safe. She is stupid. Inside the room. I heard a ping. "Just the wife." Gavin's voice drifted out, sounding dismissive and relaxed. "She thinks I am at a bar. We are good. Let's finish this then," the notary mumbled. I backed away, my boots making no sound on the thick carpet. I lifted my phone one last time and snapped a photo of the brass plaque on the door, Marrow Executive Suite B. Then I turned and walked toward the elevator. I called Tessa as the elevator descended. She answered on the second ring. "Happy birthday." Low. "Are you having I need a lawyer?" I cut her off, my voice dropping to a whisper as the doors opened to the lobby. Not a corporate lawyer. A shark. I need someone who destroys people. Tessa. Right now. Lauren, what? What is going on? Are you okay? No. I am not okay. Gavin is trying to steal everything. I will explain later. Just find me the name. I hung up before she could ask more questions. I walked through the lobby, past the reception desk where the woman had looked at me with pity. I held my head high. I walked out into the cool night air, the valet handing me my keys with a polite nod. Have a wonderful evening, ma'am. I will. I lied. I got into my car and locked the doors. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, waiting for the tears to come. They did not come. The sadness had evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I unlocked my phone and opened the Notes app. I created a new folder. I did not title it Divorce. I titled it War. 1. The House Deed. 2. The Northline Operating Agreement. 3. The Joint Trust. 4. His signature verification logs. I started the engine. The radio began to play a soft jazz tune, but I turned it off. I needed silence to think. Gavin thought he was signing a document that would strip me of my assets. He thought he was ending my control. As I pulled out onto the main road, leaving the glowing facade of the Marrow Hotel behind me, I whispered to the empty passenger seat. If he wants to turn my birthday into my funeral, then I will be the one to write the eulogy. Dana Rourke's office was not designed for comfort. It was designed for war. Located on the 45th floor of a steel and glass tower, the room smelled of cold coffee and printer toner. It was 2 a.m. My birthday was technically over, but the nightmare was just beginning. Dana sat behind her desk, her face illuminated by the harsh blue light of 3 monitors. She was typing furiously, her eyes scanning documents that I had pulled from Gavin's cloud storage just an hour ago. "Look at this," Dana said, her voice sharp. She spun the monitor around to face me. "He did not just go to the hotel to drink. He accessed the portal for your joint investment fund 30 minutes ago. The status is pending approval." I leaned in, my eyes stinging from exhaustion. The screen showed a modification request form. "He is changing the beneficiary," I said, the realization settling in my stomach like a stone. "He is removing me." "It is worse than that," Dana corrected me, tapping the screen with a manicured nail. "He submitted an amendment for your personal trust, the one your grandmother left you. Look at the clause he added." I read the highlighted text. It was a request for emergency unilateral withdrawal rights in the event of spousal incapacitation or authorized proxy. And at the bottom of the digital page was a signature. It looked like mine. It had the loops of my L and the sharp cross of my T. But I had not signed anything. He forged it. I whispered, my hand flying to my mouth. "That is my digital signature token. He must have stolen the authentication key from my laptop while I was sleeping." "Do you have proof that he intended to defraud you before tonight?" Dana asked, looking at me with intense focus. "We need to prove premeditation. Otherwise, he will claim it was a glitch or a misunderstanding." I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking, but I forced them to be steady. I found the voice memo I had recorded in the hotel lobby and pressed play. The sound of clinking glasses in low jazz filled the silent office, followed by Gavin's voice, clear and arrogant. "After tonight, everything's clean." Dana listened, her expression hardening. "That is good. It establishes intent to wipe the slate. But who is the woman?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed on the desk. It was Tessa. I put her on speaker. "Lauren, are you with the lawyer?" Tessa asked, her voice breathless. I ran the name you gave me, Sloane Mercer. "She is not just a mistress, Lauren. She is a fixer." "A fixer?" I asked. "She works for a shadow firm in Delaware," Tessa explained rapidly. She specializes in hiding assets for high net worth individuals during litigation. She does not date these men. She helps them bury their money so their wives cannot find it. I felt a cold chill wash over me. I had thought Gavin was cheating on me with a lover. In reality, he was cheating on me with a criminal consultant. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up the location history map again. I expanded the timeline to the last 6 months. The red dots scattered across the city began to form a pattern. "Dana, look at the map," I said, pointing at the screen. "Every Tuesday and Thursday night for the past 4 months. He told me he was at the gym or working late at the office, but the GPS shows him at the Marrow Hotel, every single time. He has been building this exit strategy for months," Dana murmured, typing rapidly again. "Wait. I am looking at the credit inquiries on your company file. Lauren, did you authorize a collateral loan against Northline Strategy Group's future earnings?" "No," I said firmly. "Absolutely not." "Well, someone did," Dana said grimly. "There is a pending lien from a shell company. He is using your company's credit rating to secure cash for himself. He is leveraging you against yourself." I felt sick. I opened the folder of archived emails on Gavin's synchronized account. Searching for anything recent, I found a draft in the trash folder, sent to a generic real estate agent just yesterday. The subject line was possession date. The body of the email was short, brutal, and terrifying. "Pack her out before I come back. New wife moving in Monday." I stared at the words. He was not just leaving me. He was planning to physically remove me from my own home while I was at work. "He is not just stealing my money," I said, my voice trembling with a rage so hot it felt cold. "He is trying to erase my existence." Dana stood up. She grabbed a file folder and slammed it shut. "I am filing for an emergency asset protection order immediately," she said. "We will cite the digital forgery and the unauthorized loan application. A judge will sign this by breakfast." "No," I said. Dana paused, looking at me in surprise. "Lauren, we need to stop him. If we stop him now, he will just claim it was an error," I said, standing up to meet her gaze. "He will say he was hacked. He will cover his tracks." "I do not want to just block him. Dana, I want him to sign that paper. I want him to commit the crime." "You want to set a trap," Dana stated. "He thinks I am the stupid wife who forgot to check her notifications." I said, "Let him think that. Let him walk into that bank tomorrow believing he has won. I want his signature on the fraud document. I want him in handcuffs, not just in divorce court." Dana smiled, a sharp, dangerous expression that matched the fire in my chest. "All right," she said. "We will let the mouse take the cheese. But we are going to make sure the trap snaps shut on his neck." The morning sun hit the floorboards of my home office, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. I did not feel the warmth. I felt the cold, sharp clarity of a surgeon preparing for an amputation. I did not post vague, sad quotes on social media. I did not change my relationship status. I did not throw his clothes onto the lawn. Instead, I sent Gavin a text message at 9 in the morning, complete with a heart emoji. "Hope the meeting went well last night. Have a busy day at the office. Catch you later." He replied instantly, "Thanks, babe. Crazy day ahead. Love you." He thought he was safe. He thought I was the same woman who had baked him cookies last week. He had no idea that while he was likely nursing a hangover and dreaming of spending my money, I was systematically dismantling his access to it. I logged into the administrative backend of Northline Strategy Group. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I did not act out of anger. I acted out of corporate compliance. I initiated a server migration, moving every sensitive client file, every proprietary strategy deck, and every financial record onto a private, encrypted server that required biometric authentication My Biometrics. Then, I navigated to the User Permissions tab. I found Gavin Price, administrator. I did not delete him. That would raise an alarm. Instead, I flagged his account for mandatory security review and restricted his privileges to read only. He could look, but he could not touch, move, or copy a single byte of data. My phone rang. It was Dana. "I have the paperwork for the new entity ready," Dana said, her voice crisp. "But, Lauren, we need to be careful. Everything needs to be paper perfect. If we leave a single jagged edge, his lawyers will tear it open. It has to look like standard business restructuring, not a divorce strategy." "I understand," I replied, staring at the screen. "I am not hiding assets. Dana, I am simply protecting the integrity of the firm." "Exactly," Dana said. "Create the trail." I opened the state registry portal and finalized the formation of Whitaker Harbor Holdings. It was a boring name, a forgettable name. It was the lifeboat where I would stash the liquidity I was about to drain from our joint potential. Then, I turned my attention to the Marrow Hotel. I pulled up my investment portfolio, scrolling back 3 years. I remembered a small, aggressive buy-in I had done with a hospitality consortium. I checked the subsidiary list. There it was. The Marrow was owned by the Obsidian Group, and I held a 4% stake in Obsidian. I was not just a scorned wife snooping around. I was a minority shareholder with concerns about operational security. I drafted a formal letter to the Obsidian board, citing irregularities in non-guest access to conference facilities, and requesting the security logs for Executive Suite B for the previous night. It was legal. It was justified. And it would give me hard, admissible evidence that Gavin had met with a notary on hotel grounds, but I needed to keep him blind for 24 more hours. I needed bait. I opened my personal email and composed a message to myself, but I deliberately CC'd Gavin. Subject anniversary gift transfer. Confirmation. Body please proceed with the transfer of $50,000 to the joint savings account as discussed for our upcoming anniversary trip. It was a lie. There was no transfer. But when that notification popped up on his phone, he would see the dollar signs and the promise of more money coming his way. He would relax. He would think the golden goose was still laying eggs. Next came the house. Not the mansion we lived in that was too messy to move quickly. I logged into the portal for the rental property I had bought before we were married. It was a charming 2-bedroom cottage downtown. I listed it for sale to a private buyer, Whitaker Harbor Holdings, for fair market value. I was essentially selling it to myself, wrapping it in a corporate veil he could not pierce. Finally, the credit cards. I called the bank's fraud department. "I am noticing some unusual activity on the secondary business cards." I told the representative, my voice calm, "Please freeze all ending in 458 and 992. Mark them as compromised." "Certainly, ma'am. Should we freeze the primary platinum card as well?" "No," I said, a small and cold smile touching my lips. "Leave the platinum card active. My partner is traveling. I do not want him stranded." I left the platinum card open because it was the one linked to his Uber account. It was the one linked to his dinner tabs. By freezing the others, I forced him to funnel all his spending through the one channel I was monitoring in real time. I was not cutting off his supply. I was putting a tracking collar on him. I sat back in my chair and took a sip of cold coffee. The house was silent. The emails were sent. The traps were set. I did not flip the table. I whispered to the empty room. I simply moved the pieces. Gavin came home at 4 in the afternoon, hours earlier than usual. He carried a bouquet of lilies that were too large and a smile that was too tight. He placed the flowers on the kitchen island and walked toward me with open arms. "I wanted to make up for last night," he said, pulling me into a hug that felt like a cage. "I know I messed up the birthday dinner. I just want to make it right." I rested my chin on his shoulder, my body stiff, over the fabric of his suit jacket. I watched his eyes. They did not look at my face or the flowers. They darted immediately to my open laptop on the counter behind me. He was not checking on his wife. He was checking to see if I had discovered the breach. "It is okay," I lied, pulling away gently. "I was just working." I turned to close the laptop, and that was when I saw it. A tiny icon in the corner of my phone screen, which was sitting next to the computer, pulsed once and vanished. It was a mirroring app. I felt a cold flush of realization wash over my skin. He had installed a tracker on my phone weeks ago. He had been reading my texts, tracking my location, and monitoring my emails in real time. I kept my face perfectly smooth. I left that phone right where it was. It was compromised, which meant it was now a weapon I could use against him. I had an old device hidden in the bottom of my gym bag, one he had forgotten about. That would be my lifeline. While Gavin went upstairs to change, the decoy phone on the counter buzzed. I glanced at the screen. It was a message from an unknown number. There was no text, just an image. I opened it. It was a grainy, low-light photograph of my front door, taken from the street. The timestamp was from 3 hours ago. A second message bubble appeared. "Don't fight back. You will lose everything." It was Sloane. She was trying to scare me into submission, trying to make me feel unsafe in my own home so I would sign anything just to make it stop. I did not delete the message. I took a screenshot and forwarded it to my secret email account. This was not just harassment. It was evidence of coercion. I walked into the living room as Gavin came down the stairs. He was holding a blue folder. "Babe," he started, sitting down next to me on the sofa. "Since we are turning over a new leaf, I want to get the boring stuff out of the way. This is just that asset restructuring paperwork I mentioned a while ago. It protects us both if the market crashes. I need your signature on the last page." He handed me the pen. He was trying to rush me, banking on the emotional manipulation of the flowers and the apology. I took the folder. The document was titled Consolidated Asset Management Agreement, but the clauses inside were predatory. It assigned power of attorney to him for all household financial decisions. I held the pen, hovering over the signature line. I saw his breath hitch. He was so desperate for this win. I have a migraine," I said, rubbing my temple and letting the pen drop. "I cannot focus on the fine print right now. Gavin, my eyes are blurring. It is just standard stuff." "Lauren," he pressed, his voice edging toward irritation. "Just sign it so we can relax." "I said I cannot read it right now," I snapped, then softened my tone immediately. "I am sorry. I really am not feeling well. Let's do it tomorrow morning over coffee." Fresh eyes. He clenched his jaw, the mask slipping for a fraction of a second before he forced a nod. "Fine. Tomorrow morning. First thing." Later that night, the house was silent. I lay in bed with my eyes closed, breathing in a slow, rhythmic pattern. Gavin was on his side of the bed, his back to me. I waited until I heard the soft click of his phone unlocking. He dialed a number. He did not speak for a long time, listening to the person on the other end. "Then," he whispered, his voice barely audible in the dark room, "she is asleep. No, she didn't sign yet. She is playing the victim card." He paused. "Don't worry. I have the PR guy ready to launch the story if she tries anything. We will paint her as unstable, jealous, paranoid. Yeah, tomorrow we finalize. She won't know what hit her." He hung up and set the phone on the nightstand. I lay there in the dark, my heart pounding against the mattress. He was not just stealing from me. He was planning to destroy my reputation to cover his tracks. He wanted the world to think I was crazy so that when I screamed about fraud, no one would listen. I waited 20 minutes until his breathing turned heavy and deep. I slipped out of bed, grabbing the old phone from my gym bag in the closet, and locked myself in the bathroom. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. My face was pale, my eyes wide with the residue of fear. I took a deep breath. I was done being scared. "No," I whispered to the glass. "Tomorrow is not the day you finalize. Gavin, tomorrow is the day you wake up." I powered on the old phone and typed a single message to Dana. "Activate the plan. Execute the freeze at 8 in the morning." I hit send and watched the message deliver. I unlocked the door and went back to bed, lying down next to the man who planned to ruin me. I closed my eyes and slept soundly for the first time in days. The chess game was over. It was time to flip the board. The sun was barely over the horizon when the first domino fell. It did not fall with a crash, but with the quiet, devastating click of a judge's digital signature. By 8:15 in the morning, Dana Rourke had secured an emergency temporary restraining order on financial assets. The court had granted a 72-hour freeze on every joint account, every investment portfolio, and every credit card linked to the marriage. Gavin woke up thinking he was about to finalize a divorce on his terms. Instead, he was waking up in a financial cage. I sat in my corner office at Northline Strategy Group, the city skyline stretching out behind me. I did not feel like a wife. I felt like a CEO executing a necessary termination. I opened the internal HR portal and drafted a memo. It was short, sterile, and legally bulletproof. Subject access suspension. Gavin Price. Body due to a flagged breach in data security compliance. User access for employee Gavin Price is temporarily suspended pending a full audit. I hit send. I did not fire him. I did not humiliate him. I simply cut off his oxygen. His keycard would stop working before he even finished his morning coffee. Next came the lifestyle he felt entitled to. I picked up the phone and called the luxury dealership where we had bought the black SUV he loved more than he loved me. The title was in my name, a detail he had overlooked because he was too busy driving it. "This is Lauren Whitaker," I said, my voice flat. "I am authorizing the immediate buyback of the vehicle." "Yes, today. You can pick it up from the driveway. Keys will be with the valet." Then I went down the list. The country club membership canceled. The wine storage locker terminated. The season tickets to the basketball games transferred to a client. I was not being petty. I was mitigating damages. My phone buzzed. It was Dana. "We found another one," Dana said, her tone dark. "He did not just try to access the trust. He opened a separate line of credit under your name 3 days ago. $50,000. I gripped the phone, my knuckles turning white. He used my social security number," I asked, my voice trembling with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "Yes," Dana replied. "We are filing a fraud affidavit right now. This is a felony. Lauren, we are not just looking at a divorce anymore. We are looking at criminal charges." I hung up and immediately logged into the shareholder portal. I executed the transfer of my controlling shares in Northline to my pre-existing private trust. Because Gavin had shared confidential company data with Sloan to secure a loan, he had triggered the breach of fiduciary duty clause in our operating agreement. I stripped him of his voting rights with a single click. 10 minutes later, my personal cell phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. Lauren. The voice was breathless, panicked. It was Sloan. "Who is this?" I asked, though I knew exactly who it was. "It is Sloan. Look." "I think there has been a huge misunderstanding," she stammered, the smooth confidence of the fixer completely gone. "I didn't know he was stealing from you. I thought it was a standard separation." Can we just talk? Woman to woman, I don't want to be involved in a fraud investigation." I let the silence stretch for 5 seconds, letting her sweat. "Mr. Price told me you were a professional," I said coldly. "So you should know the protocol. All communication goes through my lawyer." I hung up before she could beg. I opened Instagram. Gavin had just posted a story. It was a picture of the sunrise viewed from our patio, with a caption that made my stomach turn new chapter soon. He was taunting me. He thought he was walking away clean. I took a screenshot. It was not a keepsake. It was proof of his state of mind, evidence that his actions were premeditated, not accidental. "Enjoy the view. Gavin," I whispered. I forwarded the screenshot to Dana, who was already compiling the dossier for the State Financial Compliance Bureau. We were building a case for digital forgery and conspiracy to commit asset misappropriation. I left the office early and drove home. The house was empty. Gavin was likely at the gym, oblivious to the fact that his membership had been revoked 10 minutes ago. I walked into his study and opened the wall safe. It was full of cash and watches he planned to take. I left them there. I did not touch a dime. Instead, I placed a single cream-colored envelope on top of the stack of cash. Inside was a handwritten note. It was not an angry letter. It was a set of coordinates and a time. I closed the safe and spun the dial. He would open it tonight, expecting to pack his getaway bag. Instead, he would find the invitation to his own downfall. I walked out of the house, locked the door, and didn't look back. The trap was primed. All he had to do was step on it. My father was a man who believed in contracts more than he believed in vows. I remembered sitting in his mahogany-paneled study shortly before he passed away, watching him sign a stack of documents with a heavy fountain pen. He had looked up at me, his eyes clear and serious, and said the words that were now echoing in my mind like a prayer. "Lauren, listen to me. Never mix love with ownership without an exit. Love is a feeling. Assets are a reality. Do not confuse the two." Gavin thought he had married a successful strategy consultant with a healthy savings account. He had no idea who he had actually married. He did not know that I was a founding shareholder of the Sterling Real Estate Fund, a private family trust that owned commercial blocks across 3 states. I had never flaunted it. I wanted a normal life. I wanted a marriage based on affection, not the size of a portfolio. So I had kept the massive distributions in a separate, premarital structure that Gavin's name had never touched. He was scrambling to steal crumbs from the table, completely unaware that the feast was locked in a vault he did not even know existed. I sat in my car, parked 2 blocks away from the Marrow Hotel. I watched the rain hit the windshield. It made sense now why he had chosen my 30th birthday to execute his plan. He had banked on my psychology. He thought turning 30 would make me feel vulnerable. He thought I would be terrified of being alone, terrified of starting over, and that I would sign anything just to keep the picture-perfect husband in the frame. He had bet on my weakness. He should have bet on my preparation. My phone rang. It was Dana. "I have news on the notary Gavin used last night," Dana said, her voice sounding triumphant. "His name is Arthur Penn. He isn't exactly squeaky clean. Lauren, he had his license suspended in Florida for notarizing documents without the signatories present. If Gavin tries to use anything signed last night, we can tear it apart in court before the ink is dry." "Good," I said, "but I don't just want to win in court." "Dana, I want to win tonight." I had already made the call to the events manager at the Marrow. I did not ask for a table. I booked Executive Suite B again. I needed the stage to be exactly the same. I wanted him to walk back into the scene of the crime, thinking he was returning to collect the body, only to find the victim holding the gun. Sloan was beginning to crack. I could feel it. The cease and desist letter I had sent was just the start. She was a woman who followed the money, and she was smart enough to realize that Gavin was currently driving a car he did not own and trying to access accounts that were flashing red. She was realizing that she had bet on a horse with 3 broken legs. I opened my laptop and drafted the email that would serve as the final lure. I stripped my language of any power. I made myself sound small, scared, and desperate. Subject, "Let's resolve this." Body, Gavin, please. I don't want lawyers involved anymore. I am tired. Meet me at the Marrow tonight. Suite B. I have the reconciliation papers you wanted. I just want peace. It was the lie he wanted to hear. It fed his ego. It confirmed his bias that I was too weak to fight. I hit send. 5 minutes later, a reply popped up. "I knew you would see sense. I'll be there at 8. Let's fix this." I closed the laptop. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and black, reflecting the city lights like a mirror. I checked my makeup in the rearview mirror. I looked calm. I looked dangerous. I did not need him to confess his sins. I did not need him to apologize. I just needed him to show up at the right place, at the right time, so I could close the door behind him. "Checkmate," I whispered to the empty car. I don't need him to admit he is wrong. I just need him to stand in the light. Gavin arrived at the Marrow Hotel at 8 o'clock sharp. He was wearing a navy suit that I knew cost $3,000 because I had paid the credit card bill for it last month. He did not come alone. Sloane walked beside him, her hand tucked possessively into the crook of his elbow. She was dressed in white, a subtle, twisted signal that she considered herself the future bride, the replacement who had already won. They moved through the lobby with the easy confidence of predators who believed their prey was already wounded and waiting to be finished off. I was not waiting in the suite. I was sitting in the dim alcove of the lobby lounge, nursing a sparkling water. I watched the screen of my phone. The blue dot representing Gavin moved across the digital map and came to a stop exactly where I wanted it. I felt a strange, cold calm settle over me. It was the silence before a controlled demolition. Upstairs, inside Executive Suite B, the stage was set. I had arranged for a tablet to be placed on the mahogany table, alongside a stack of legal documents. A man in a gray suit stood by the window, playing the part of the witness. To Gavin, it must have looked like a surrender. I watched the security feed on my phone. Gavin strode into the room, loosened his tie, and smiled at the documents. "Finally," Gavin said, his voice tinny through the speaker. "She stopped fighting. Let's get this over with." Sloane sat next to him, crossing her legs. "Read it first, Gavin. Just to be safe. I know what it says." Gavin scoffed, picking up the digital stylus. "It says I get control. It says she is tired." He scrolled to the bottom of the page without reading a single paragraph of the text. He pressed the stylus to the glass and signed his name with a flourish. He thought he was signing a transfer of assets. He had no idea that Dana had swapped the file. He had just signed a sworn affidavit acknowledging that he had attempted to bypass security protocols and had knowingly met with a notary to defraud a spouse. Sloane smiled, leaning in to kiss his cheek. "Done. You are free." The door to the suite flew open. Dana Rourke stepped inside, not with a smile, but with a clipboard. Behind her walked a stern-looking man wearing the badge of the State Financial Compliance Bureau. "Good evening, Mr. Price," Dana said, her voice cutting through the room like a knife. "Thank you for executing that affidavit. It makes the fraud investigation significantly easier for my team." Gavin dropped the stylus. He stood up so fast his chair tipped over. Who are you?" Gavin stammered. "Where is Lauren? This is a private meeting. This is a crime scene," the compliance officer said, stepping forward. "And you just signed a confession regarding digital impersonation." Gavin looked at the door. He tried to push past Dana, panic seizing his features. "I am leaving," he shouted. "Sloane, come on!" He swiped his keycard at the door panel to exit, but the light flashed red. He swiped it again. Red. He ran to the elevator call button in the hallway, pressing it frantically. Nothing happened. "The floor is on lockdown. Gavin," I said. I stepped out from the adjacent room. I was not crying. I was not shouting. I walked calmly into the suite and approached the table where he had just signed his life away. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the single, half-burnt birthday candle from the night before. I placed it gently on the center of the table. Gavin stared at me, his face draining of color. "Lauren," he breathed, You are insane. You are overreacting. We can talk about this. I was just trying to protect our assets." "Protect?" I asked, my voice low. "Is that what you call this?" I tossed a folder onto the table. It slid across the polished wood and fanned open. Inside were the location logs of his visits to the hotel, the transcript of the audio recording where he said he wanted to clean everything, the screenshot of the new wife text, and the metadata from the digital signature request he had sent while I was sleeping. "I have everything, Gavin," I said. "I have the dates. I have the times. I have the lies." Sloane backed away, her eyes darting between us. She realized the boat was sinking, and she was looking for a life raft. I didn't know he was doing all this," Sloane whispered, her voice trembling. "Lauren, I swear, I thought he was separated. Save it for the deposition," I said without looking at her. Gavin looked at the evidence, then at me. His shock began to curdle into something uglier. He straightened his jacket, a sneer forming on his lips. "You think you have won, don't you?" Gavin said, a dark laugh bubbling up in his throat. "You think because you locked the elevator and brought a lawyer that you are in control. I am in control," I replied steadily. "No, you aren't," Gavin hissed, stepping closer until I could smell the expensive scotch on his breath. "You missed something. You think you found all the money. You think you tracked every penny." He leaned down, his eyes wide and manic. "What about that account, Lauren?" he whispered. "The one you don't even know exists. The one I set up with your father's old partner before the wedding. You can freeze the banks, but you can't freeze what isn't on the books." I froze. My blood ran cold. He wasn't talking about a credit card. He was talking about something buried deep in the past, something connected to the one person I thought I could trust. What? "What did you say?" I asked, my voice faltering for the first time. Gavin smiled, and it was the cruelest thing I had ever seen. "I didn't just marry you for the future, Lauren," he said softly. "I married you for the past." He waited for me to crumble at the mention of the secret offshore account, thinking he had played the ultimate ace. He thought that by hiding money under my maiden name in a jurisdiction he believed was untouchable, he had secured a leverage I could not break. I took a sip of my sparkling water and set the glass down on the coaster with a soft click. "You are talking about the account in the Caymans?" I asked, my voice conversational, as if we were discussing the weather. "The one you tried to reactivate 3 weeks ago using a scanned copy of my passport. I have known about that since the day the initial deposit cleared." Gavin froze. His smile faltered. "That is impossible," he whispered. That is a ghost account." "It was a ghost account," I corrected him, "until I reported it to the IRS and the International Banking Commission as an unauthorized identity usage. It was frozen 10 days ago. Gavin, the money is there, but you cannot touch it. In fact, by trying to access it tonight, you just triggered a federal alert for wire fraud." The color drained from his face so completely that he looked like a wax figure. The compliance officer stepped forward, opening a leather binder. "Mr. Price," the officer stated, his voice devoid of emotion, "you are officially under investigation for digital forgery, conspiracy to commit asset misappropriation, and breach of fiduciary duty within a corporate entity. We are not arresting you tonight, but your passport has been flagged. You are grounded." Dana stepped in next, handing him a thick envelope. "This is a court order," she said. "Your assets are frozen. Your access to all joint accounts is terminated immediately. And regarding the house, the sale of the property to Whitaker Harbor Holdings was finalized this afternoon. The new owner takes possession at 8 in the morning. You have exactly 12 hours to remove your personal effects before the locks are changed." Gavin looked at the papers, his hands shaking so violently he dropped them. He turned and ran toward the door, ignoring the red light on the panel. He scrambled for his phone, dialing a number frantically. Pick up, he muttered, sweat beading on his forehead. He held the phone to his ear, but I could hear the automated message from where I stood. "Call failed. I canceled your service plan an hour ago," I said. "And don't bother with the credit cards. They have all been reported as compromised. You can't even call an Uber. Gavin, you are stranded." He tapped furiously on his screen, trying to open Instagram, trying to message someone, anyone. A notification popped up: "Account locked due to suspicious identity activity." He was erased. In the span of 20 minutes, he had gone from a man who thought he owned the world to a man who did not even own a working telephone. Sloane, who had been watching this dismantling with growing horror, backed away toward the door. Her phone pinged. She looked down, and her eyes went wide. I just got an email from my firm's legal department, she stammered, looking at Gavin with pure venom. They are suspending me. They say I am a person of interest in a fraud scheme. You dragged me into this, Sloan. Wait, Gavin pleaded, reaching for her arm. Don't touch me, she shrieked. I am not going to jail for your messy divorce. She turned and fled the room. The door, which I had unlocked remotely via the app on my phone, allowed her to leave. She did not look back. Gavin stood alone in the center of the suite. The silence was heavy, suffocating. He looked at the notary, who was packing up his bag, and then he looked at me. The arrogance was gone. He looked small. He looked like the man I had met 5 years ago, empty and hungry. Lauren, he said, his voice cracking. Please, we can fix this. Think about everything we built. Think about the memories. You can't just destroy me like this. It is your birthday. You love me. I looked at him, and I felt absolutely nothing. The love I had held for him had not been killed by the betrayal. It had been starved by his greed. You are right, I said softly. It is my birthday. But you did not forget it. Gavin, you chose it. You picked this day because you thought I would be weak. You turned my milestone into a weapon. I just turned it back around. I walked over to him and placed a small white envelope in his hand. Open this when you are outside, I said. It is not a negotiation. It is a receipt. He looked down at the envelope, tears welling in his eyes. Lauren, everything you used was mine, I said, turning my back on him. You didn't lose it. I reclaimed it. I walked out of the suite. I did not run. I walked with the steady rhythm of a woman who had nowhere to be but up. I reached the end of the hallway and pressed the button for the private elevator. The doors slid open. Standing inside was Marcus Sterling, the CEO of Northline Strategy Group. He held a leather portfolio in his hands. Is it done? He asked. It is done, I replied, stepping inside. Good, Marcus said, handing me a pen. Then let's sign the new partnership agreement. The board is excited about your proposal for the new division. Asset protection for women. I think you are going to be very busy. I signed my name Lauren Whitaker. No price. Just me. As the elevator descended, I pulled out my phone one last time. I opened the location sharing app. I saw Gavin's blue dot standing motionless on the sidewalk outside the hotel, surrounded by his luggage and holding keys to a house that was no longer his. I tapped the screen. Stop sharing location. The dot disappeared. The screen went black. I put the phone in my pocket and watched the numbers on the elevator climb, ready to start my 31st year, not as a victim, but as a victor. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. So please drop a comment below with your city or country and let's share our thoughts on Lauren's revenge. Don't forget to subscribe to Victoria Revenge Stories, hit the like button, and smash that hype button so this story can reach even more people.